Hi, this is Tanya from Hillbilly Handiworks again. This is part 2 of our English paper piecing video. On our first video we showed you how to make graph paper. Be sure to look that up if you haven't seen that, because a lot of people get confused about the graph paper. On part 2 I'm going to show you how to draw out your own designs. As you can see, I've drawn out the hexagon. I do not recommend you doing this, number 1, with a marker because it's too thick of lines, and number 2, I wouldn't do it at all because I would continue to use the lines that you printed with your computer because they're more accurate. I'm using a marker just for videotaping purposes. We are going to draw out the first ah number 1, the pointing star. This was originally a pattern back in the Kansas City Star in the 1930s. For my drawing purposes, I like to use the friction pins. I sell these on my fabric page and my blog. They're readily found in most quilt shops. There are different colors. The only thing you need to be careful of is that you do not touch them with an iron after you have drawn the lines, because the lines will disappear. But if you do mess up a line, they're very easily erased. Love using the friction markers pins. They are very thin line, so they are perfect for drawing what we're going to do today. I'm actually not going to use the friction because they're too thin line to use on video. I'm going to use markers, but once again I stress, do not use markers for your own use. They are too thick. Alright, for the pointing star you will see that there are divisions about there's 3 divisions across the section. When you look at a design, or when you're designing your own, just like any normal quilt block, you're designing it in either thirds or fourths or different sections like that. Okay, so when you look at this, we look at it point up, and you see where these divisions are. We're going to draw those divisions. We're going to count 1, 2 triangles down, and right on that line you're going to use your quilt ruler so that you can stay on the line both past your hexagon as well, so that you stay right on that line. I have to move mine over because of the marker. But there's your first division, 1, 2, and your second division. See, as you can see, that divides up that hexagon. We're going to turn it around and do that for every point. I'm going to do it one time with a friction pin so that you can see how nice and thin a friction pin shows up for you. One of the reasons I like to use the 1/2 inch paper is I like to grid up my lines with my grid, my ruler. Dividing that up, 1, 2 on that side, 1, 2 on this side. There, as you can see, they're much more of a fine point, and that's what you should be using, is a very fine tip to divide your hexagons. I'll go back to using markers for your purposes though. I'm going to divide it, I'll move those awls out of the way, and we're going to divide it one more time so that we have divided it on each point of the hexagon. For this particular design, each design is different. This design we need it divided on each point. There. Now I don't know if you can see it right there where those pink lines are, but you'll see that it's been divided all the way around, and we actually have a little hexagon here in the middle. Okay, we're going to take, if you look at our design, look, we've got these little diamonds, triangles right here, and we're going to work on this middle spot. A lot of these shapes have what I call a middle asterisk. That little middle asterisk there makes a whole lot of designs. So we're going to make one. You go right to the middle of your hexagon. You're going to go 2 squares out from the middle, both directions. 2 triangles out, I'm sorry. So 1, 2, and again 1, 2. 1, 2. Now, note, once you've got those, you've actually got your diamond shape all the way around. There's 1, 2, 3 diamonds, and maybe use a different color to get the other diamonds. There's 1, 2, 3 diamonds. Also, you have your triangle, 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 and triangle. And then you have your Ahhhh shape, the pointing star. And it's finished. Now when I cut mine out, I use a rotary cutter that is only used for paper. Once I use a blade for paper, it cannot be used for fabric. So I save a separate cutter just for my Ahhhh patterns. And when I'm cutting, I use those lines on past what I've drawn to make sure I'm lining everything up very perfectly, very precisely, and just cut it out. You'll notice that I did not cut out my hexagon until I got the whole hexagon drawn out. Okay, I'm not going to cut the whole thing out for time purposes, but let's say it's all cut out and we've got this. Okay, if I were to just cut along that line, that would slice into that. So once it gets to this point, you can either very carefully cut right up to where you're supposed to be, or you can get out scissors and cut a little more precisely on the lines that you've drawn. You notice I didn't get very accurate with my ruler, and that's because I used marker, and it's not a very fine point. If I were to go over here, I've got a much more fine point to cut out. Once you've got them all cut out, you have your very own shapes, just like what I sell. Same things, same shapes. Your very own Ahhhh made with your own graph paper. And that's all there is to it.